Thank you guys for watching this video. Like and subscribe to see more videos. Let's get into the video.
43 Chapter 43. He drew his sword and swung it forward swiftly.
Bah!
Kakashi drew his own sword from behind his back and parried the strike. A look of surprise crossed his eyes. What are you doing here, A? Is he really going to kill us? Was I wrong to trust him? In response, A raised his sword again with a sharp motion. Didn't your companion already guess it earlier? A slashed his sword, his eyes cold. Struggle flashed through A's mind, but his hand remained steady as he continued his assault. Hey, that's a joke. Satoru interrupted, scratching his head innocently. I didn't expect that the old man Danzo would really mix personal vengeance with public duty. He couldn't resist throwing in a little jab at Danzo. No, it can't be called a jab. It was more like friendly advice. Is it really appropriate for you to be watching the show? Kakashi said, speechless. Though Kakashi didn't need Satoru to intervene, he couldn't help but feel the tension in the air. I was really fighting him. Was he really going to kill them? Kakashi barely managed to dodge A's sword just now, but the thought lingered. Are you serious? Kakashi asked, his voice sharper. I am. I replied, his voice cold. He swung his sword sideways, knocking Kakashi's blade away. The attack didn't stop there. Pressed the offensive, his strikes growing more relentless. Suddenly, Wujutsu erupted from the ground, ensnaring Kakashi. Countless tendrils wrapped around him, restricting his movement. A's gaze flicked to Satoru, who had yet to move.
How?
Is he not going to intervene? In that moment, the figure that had been tied up earlier suddenly transformed into white smoke, disappearing. A row of hidden weapons shot toward him, one of them hitting his arm, while the others aimed at the back of his neck. Why did you try to kill me? Kakashi sighed, a question that seemed almost foolish, but it had to be asked. What reason did I have for attacking them suddenly, unless it was Danzo's orders? Root. Was this finally the reckoning for everything? Kakashi recalled the day he had reported Danzo's schemes to the third Hokage. This day seemed inevitable. Who are you to ask? A's voice rang out with conviction. Who qualifies a man who kills his own companion to ask those questions? A's words hit with the weight of Danzo's teachings. There was a hollow emptiness in his voice, one that only he truly understood. Danzo-sama wouldn't lie to him, would he? Kakashi's expression shifted drastically. His body tensed and his breath caught. No Hero Rin. He thought of that day, that moment. Satoru, who had remained silent for a while, finally spoke, walking toward A, who was now restrained. Do you really think Kakashi looks like a man who would kill his own companion? Satoru asked, his tone serious. If that were true, why would he have defended you earlier? A tilted his head, now reflecting on Satoru's words. He was starting to see that Satoru had deliberately tricked him before. Didn't his companion die by his hand? A argued, though still unconvinced. The one who betrayed Konoha and killed his companions is innocent. Satoru's voice sharpened. Danzo-sama is wrong. Satoru's words cut to the heart of the matter. So it's Danzo who's been feeding you lies. Satoru continued, his voice suddenly cold. Then what about this mission? There's no mention of killing me, Satoru said, his eyes turning icy. He had shed the lazy attitude and replaced it with serious intent. A's face shifted, confusion creeping into his expression. I started, his voice faltering. The reason Danzo gave for wanting to kill Kakashi was that he was a traitor to Konoha, someone who had once killed his companions. But the reason for wanting to kill Satoru Uchiha had never been revealed. Just as A was about to speak again, 3 kunai with explosive tags sped toward them. Be careful, Kakashi shouted, pushing A out of the way as he dodged the attack himself. You're not mean enough, Kakashi, Satoru quipped, casually dodging the kunai with ease. It's just the first one. The explosions from the detonating kunai reverberated through the abandoned lab, filling the air with thick smoke. Figures emerged from the smoke, moving quickly toward Kakashi and Satoru, ignoring A, who had just been nearly killed by them. A watched in confusion as the situation unfolded. Did Kakashi just save him?
Why?
44 Chapter 44. A, what are you still doing in a daze? A root member called out suspiciously when they saw a still frozen in place. Hurry up, keep up. They urged. Kill this traitor, who's a fellow root ninja.
A.
The voice grew more insistent. Are you going to betray the root?
Betray Danzo-sama?
A stood still, confusion clouding his thoughts.
Danzo-sama?
Root? Was everything Danzo-sama said truly right? Why was it that, as Konoha's root, they were ordered to kill their own people, even those who had been their companions? A's eyes were filled with doubt and confusion. His world seemed to be crumbling around him. After a long moment of internal conflict, a flicker of resolve returned to his gaze. Without hesitation, he moved back to the battlefield. Wood style, tree boundary wall. A shouted. A shield of wooden vines sprang from the ground, quickly growing and forming a protective barrier around Satoru and Kakashi. He didn't look back, leaving his back exposed to them. Then he whispered,
Kakashi-senpai, I'm sorry.
I misunderstood you earlier. Let's go. Kakashi-senpai would never be the type of person to betray his companions. Danzo-sama must have misunderstood. The other root members blocked their path, their voices full of anger and disdain. A, are you really going to betray the root? One shouted. Have you forgotten who you are? You are the root of Konoha. They accused A of betraying them with venomous words. TSK, what a pity. Satoru said calmly. You've lost yourself. He's not just the root of the root. Satoru continued. He's the root of Konoha. He spoke slowly, and his words cut through the tension in the air. Not even the combined forces of Kakashi and his team might be able to stop it now. Hearing this, A's eyes widened in shock. The root of Konoha. Yes, that's what he was. The root and the leaf were intertwined, inseparable. Under his mask, A's lips curled into a faint smile. He hadn't expected Satoru to understand things so clearly. At first, he had seen Satoru as just a young man, naive and inexperienced. But now, after hearing his words, A realized just how much wisdom Satoru had. Satoru was much more than a teenager with a sharp tongue. He was a ninja who operated in the shadows, someone who understood the true purpose of their actions, no matter how dark they seemed. A turned his gaze to Satoru, appreciation and complexity filling his eyes. Satoru, however, had no idea of the internal struggle A was experiencing. If he had, he would have been shocked and would have immediately countered A's assumptions. Just then, a loud thud shook the lab violently.
Ban.
Smack. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the room, followed by the collapse of heavy objects. What's going on? A asked, confused. It's probably a ripple effect from the explosion just now. Satoru replied, his voice devoid of emotion. He adjusted the eye patch over his face, his gaze unwavering. We attacked with kunai detonators earlier, but this is a snake cave that's been abandoned for years. The structure is unstable. Blow something up, and the collapse is inevitable. Something's coming. He added quietly. Stuff. A repeated, still unsure. When Kakashi and Satoru heard this, they remained on high alert, scanning their surroundings.
Shing.
Shing. Several shuriken flew toward them, and the root members hastily moved to tighten the encirclement. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Satoru, is it really what you said? He asked, skepticism in his voice, but shaking his head. It doesn't feel right.
Boom. Boom. Boom.
A massive object appeared, knocking over instruments and debris. A giant python slithered above them, its huge body casting a shadow over the room. Hiss. What is this? Someone shouted in horror. Monsters. The root members screamed as they were quickly swallowed by the giant snake. Satoru, unfazed, sighed. This can't be Orochimaru's work, can it? Looking up at the colossal snake, which was 20 meters tall, Satoru spoke again. No kidding, he's definitely eyeing us. The giant python's golden pupils locked onto the remaining three, cold and emotionless. I'll hold it off. You two go. A said, trying to restrain the serpent with his strength. But with his current ability, he couldn't overpower the giant snake. Don't underestimate your seniors. Kakashi said coldly, his voice sharp. His gaze fixed on the snake before him. Chidori. Kakashi's right hand crackled with blue lightning as he thrust it toward the serpent's vulnerable neck. The snake reacted, thrashing wildly, its massive body throwing out shockwaves with every strike. A's hold on the snake weakened as it fought back. Everyone's very motivated. Satoru cheered, his voice bright. Then I'll help. He gave a radiant smile before several figures appeared on top of the snake's head. The wind tousled his white hair, and a smile flashed in his pale blue eyes under his blindfold. He extended his hand, looking down at the serpent below him. 45 Chapter 45
Shing.
Shing. Countless shuriken flew toward the giant snake's eyes, aiming for its vulnerable spot. Roar. The serpent let out a violent cry. The pain and danger caused it to thrash wildly, its massive body writhing in agony. In its struggle, the serpent inadvertently exposed its Achilles heel, the spot just behind its 7-inch mark, a critical vulnerability. Found it. Kakashi's voice carried a rare hint of excitement. This is it. Chidori. Blue lightning crackled to life in Kakashi's hand once more. He launched the highly destructive technique toward the serpent with precise intent. The serpent fought back with all its might, thrashing in its last desperate attempt to survive. And then,
Boom.
with a resounding explosion, the serpent collapsed to the ground. It worked. Kakashi said softly, his voice calm. A faint smile appeared beneath the mask of the armor. It worked. But then his expression suddenly darkened. Goodbye, Kakashi. Satoru Uchiha. Said, his voice steady. Let's leave it at that. He put his mask back on, preparing to turn away. Where are you going, eh? Kakashi called out, stopping him. Kakashi knew the rules of the route well, abandoning the past and the future, living without names, memories, or emotions. This was the life of a route ninja. Those who failed their mission or betrayed the route didn't survive. And might never come back. Kakashi's gaze grew complicated as he thought of the consequences. Smiled softly, his voice quiet. The route is where I belong. Without it, I don't know where else to go. I have no choice but to go back. Besides, Danzo-sama doesn't necessarily have to do anything to me. He said this not only to comfort Kakashi and Satoru, but also to reassure himself. What? Do I still have a sense of existence here? Satoru asked, pulling out a 3-color pill and popping it into his mouth. You've forgotten what you just said. He added with a mischievous grin. You're underestimating your seniors too much. When did you become a senior? Kakashi asked, looking at Satoru with a speechless expression. Just as he thought about it, Satoru interrupted him. Of course, I'm a senior. Satoru replied casually. I'm one of the shadows, after all. Anyway, I'm ahead of A, so of course I'm a senior. He added with a yawn before continuing. Besides, you're a bit too serious, Kakashi. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Shadows?
A.
Suddenly, Kakashi had an idea and turned to Satoru. It's a good idea to bring A into the shadows. Kakashi mused. No matter how far Danzo's influence reaches, it can never surpass the Hokage. He tugged on his forehead protector, adjusting it to cover one of his eyes. Satoru, hearing this, shook his head. It's not just a matter of time,
He said.
Danzo's been crossing paths with the Hokage for years. The moment the 4th Hokage died and the 3rd Hokage returned to power, Danzo had already started preparing to assassinate the 3rd and seize the position himself. He looked at the two of them curiously. Did you two forget about the true nature of the route? Satoru asked, a playful glint in his eyes. I hesitated for a long time before responding slowly. I thought you were just describing things. Kakashi mirrored A's confused expression. Both of them had covered their faces, hiding their emotions. At first, they thought Satoru was simply talking about the relationship between Konoha and its factions, but they hadn't expected it to mean this. Satoru, understanding their looks, smiled a little awkwardly. You two are quite poetic, aren't you? Quite abstract in your understanding. Satoru's words about the route were clear. The idea was for them to find the 3rd Hokage and serve beneath him. Instead, they seemed to be thinking in entirely different directions. The wood-style technique held great significance for Konoha. It was something that the entire village of ninjas had long dreamed of obtaining. The top brass had even conducted high-risk experiments to gain such power, knowing it could help control the tailed beasts and their rampages. The 3rd Hokage must have been more than willing to offer protection for such a power. Satoru paused, deep in thought. By the way, how much is a wood ninja worth? He mused aloud. If a person could be resold 3 times, would they get 3 bounties? That would be a nice windfall. I shivered under Satoru's gaze. Why is he looking at me like that? A thought, suddenly feeling uneasy. I might have misjudged my senior's intentions. Satoru's thoughts were interrupted by Kakashi's voice. What are you thinking? We're leaving. Kakashi said, glancing at Satoru, who appeared lost in thought. You can't stay in this cave for long. Kakashi continued. It could collapse at any moment. Then, he turned and walked out of the snake cave, leading the group away from the danger. 46 Chapter 46 Konoha, Hokage's office. Hiruzen was working through the pile of papers on his desk. At that moment, Kakashi and his team entered to report on their mission. Sarutobi looked up, surprised. Along with them was a strange ninja. Hokage-sama, this is a former member of the Root. Kakashi explained quietly. Root? Sarutobi asked, confused. You went on a mission and brought a member of the Root with you? Something felt off. Sarutobi's instincts told him there was more to this situation than it appeared. He sat up straighter, his expression turning serious as he listened carefully to Kakashi's report. Kakashi continued, methodically recounting everything that had happened. I see. Sarutobi was silent for a moment before speaking again. I didn't expect so much to happen on this mission. How much has Danzo been hiding from me over the years? Light and darkness are inherently coexistent. This was something Sarutobi understood deeply. It was the reason he had tolerated Danzo for so long. After all, both were working for Konoha's benefit. But Sarutobi now realized that Danzo's recent actions were going too far. Thinking about this, Sarutobi slowly shifted his gaze to A. This was the child who had been hidden. The wood style. Konoha lacked this kind of power. With Naruto now 6 years old, the Ninetales would soon become a serious concern. The wood style was one of the only forces that could suppress the Ninetales' rampages. Hey! Sarutobi said, his tone softening. You will be the Root of Konoha from now on. In that case, you should have a name. Yamato. He said thoughtfully. Harmony means peace, balance, and unity. It represents small harmony, neutrality, and great harmony. How about the name Yamato? Yamato. Hearing the origin of the name, A's heart was filled with a complex emotion. He nodded silently, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Satoru, standing aside, casually observed A's change in mood and shook his head. This old man has a way with words, he thought. No wonder he's Hokage. He knows how to speak to people. A few days later, Satoru walked to the meeting place with a 3-color ball in his mouth. I said, new guy, why are you so slow? A ninja in a standard uniform asked impatiently. He had a woolen roll around his arm and was clearly irritated. This was Naoya Kichiji, the captain of the mission. Originally, Kichiji had been skeptical about Satoru's presence in the Anbu division. An 8-year-old child? It was already impressive for a child to become a ninja at such a young age. But what qualifications did he have to be here in the Anbu division? This was a place of real danger, not a child's playground. Kichiji hoped that Satoru would be sensible and not slow them down. But to Kichiji's frustration, Satoru had been late on the first day of the mission. His impatience was only growing. Don't be in such a hurry, it's just the right time. Satoru said slowly, clearly annoyed. He took the last bite of his 3-color ball and let out a sigh. Was this really what he had signed up for? Seeing this, Kichiji's face darkened. This is a mission now. You'd better be focused. Kichiji snapped. The Anbu division had never seen someone like him. Kyoto Sato, who was standing beside Kichiji, smiled and tried to smooth things over. You haven't explained the mission details yet? While the rest of the team knew the mission's contents, Sato asked to divert Kichiji's attention. Kichiji pressed a hand to his forehead, trying to hold back his irritation. Our task is... In short, this task isn't very difficult, but everyone should be cautious. Kichiji said, adding a final comment to boost morale. Once he finished speaking, the team nodded in agreement. At this point, Satoru fell in line with the rest of the group. However, Kichiji couldn't help but notice the stark difference in height and appearance between Satoru and the other members of the Anbu division. He couldn't shake the feeling that Satoru would be a problem. Let's hope this mission goes smoothly, Kichiji thought with a heavy sigh. 47 Chapter 47 Their mission this time was simple, just deliver the scroll. Their mission this time was simple: just deliver the scroll to the designated target. As for the rest, they didn't need to worry about it. So, the atmosphere within the team remained relatively relaxed. Naoya Kichiji, who had been leading the group for some time, suddenly spoke as he observed the surroundings. It's going to be an open field ahead, so everyone should rest and replenish their strength here. Hearing this, the group began to take a break and replenish their energy. Are you really 8 years old? Kyoto Sato, who was resting nearby, suddenly asked Satoru. He looked no older than his younger brother, who was still in school. How had he made it into the shadows at such a young age? Genius? It seemed a bit far-fetched. He looked exactly like a little kid, nothing like a member of the shadows. Could he really adapt to this life? Kyoto Sato lowered his gaze, deep in thought. Uncle, who loves strawberry milk, doesn't look like he's 30 either. Satoru said quietly, his voice laced with sarcasm. He then glanced over at the dissonant sight, a burly, handsome man holding a carton of strawberry milk, sipping it peacefully. Is this really the world of adults? It's terrifying, Satoru thought, amused by the absurdity. He looked up at the sky again, distracted. Judging by how things were progressing, they should have time to. Wait, what is this? Satoru snapped out of his thoughts, suddenly realizing something felt off. His sharp senses caught something strange in the air. Could it be? Meanwhile, Kyoto Sato, still reeling from the earlier comments, was immersed in his own thoughts. Uncle? 30. Those words hit him hard. His mouth twitched. Did he really look that old? He was only 16. Shaking his head helplessly, he let go of the thought. At that moment, Satoru suddenly shoved Kyoto Sato aside and quickly retreated.
Boom.
As Satoru and Kyoto Sato moved back, an enormous explosion erupted where they had been resting. From the smoke, a figure leapt out, one of the ninjas who had been planning to attack them. The man was enormous and muscular, with messy light-colored hair that looked like a mane. His powerful frame and vicious eyes betrayed his surprise at being discovered. He glared at Satoru coldly, his expression full of annoyance at the failed ambush. How did this kid find me? Was it just a coincidence? This man had successfully used his art of concealment to assassinate many formidable ninjas, yet today, he had failed, defeated by an 8-year-old child. Unacceptable. He didn't engage in battle immediately, unlike the other ninjas behind him who sought out their targets. Instead, he fixated on Satoru and asked, "Boy, how did you find me?" Satoru, standing on the other side, ignored the man's question, instead slowly adjusting his clothes. I miscalculated. The detonation charm was too much. Now there's so much dust everywhere. What a mistake. Then his eyes landed on the tricolor balls that had unfortunately been blown to the ground. It's my favorite flavor, Satoru muttered under his breath. He stood there for a moment, then looked up. If it weren't for this person? How did you find me? The man asked again, frustrated. Do you still need to ask about this kind of thing? Satoru responded, his tone suddenly sharp. The terrain here is special. Those who hide in the woods can clearly observe everything around them. There was no better place to ambush. That's why I left the detonator pack there. He continued, his voice tinged with mockery. I didn't expect someone to pick it up themselves. Satoru, abandoning his usual lazy demeanor, now stood tall and poised, exuding a powerful combat aura. His tone was serious, and his eyes sharp. Is this the power of the three-color ball? Kyoto Sato, still nearby, let out a silent sigh. At that moment, the 6 enemies around them had positioned themselves in a perfect trap, blocking all directions. Shuriken, thrown weapons, and other tools formed a deadly circle. Satoru listened carefully to the whistling sound of the wind. The sound of the hidden weapons slicing through the air was perfectly smooth. There was no resistance, no explosive tags attached. Times have changed, huh? This kind of hidden weapon without an explosive tag can't kill anyone. Before Kyoto Sato could exclaim, Satoru moved quickly. He turned and leapt into the air, throwing his own hidden weapons. Bumper bumper. Dazzling weapons collided in midair, their cold gleam flashing brightly. In an instant, the weapons that had been thrown toward them were sent back on their original trajectory. And then,
boom.
A violent explosion rang out, deafening everyone's ears. 48 Chapter 48. As the smoke cleared, the ninja who had launched a sneak attack fell to the ground, his body unmoving. A hint of surprise crossed Kyoto Sato's face as he observed the scene. The image of the immature teenager he had seen moments ago instantly shattered. He seemed different than I imagined. The light-haired ninja, on the other side, was also taken aback. He hadn't expected this young imp to have such skill. But still, he was confident. This wasn't the third-rate ninja he had encountered earlier. He stared coldly at the white-haired boy in the distance, a murderous intent flashing in his eyes.
Astérisque impossible, astérisque.
The light-haired ninja thought to himself. This ninjutsu has never failed me before. Satoru smirked, feeling half of his previous irritation fade away. He began to enjoy the moment, looking directly at the light-haired ninja. "Hey, uncle on the other side." Satoru called out casually. "Where did I just go?" The light-haired ninja froze for a moment, his expression turning strange. He had asked the question before, but not because he was confused. That had been a small part of his plan. The real reason was to create an opening to lure the enemy into an attack. He had done this intentionally to give others a chance to sneak in. So, why would this white-haired imp do the same thing? Was he trying to lure me in? In terms of ninja vigilance, this trick was practically useless after one use. There was no way to pull off a sneak attack twice. The light-haired ninja watched Satoru, his mind racing. This kid, he's not as naive as he seems. "Isn't it inconvenient to call you uncle?" Satoru continued, a small grin forming on his face. The light-haired ninja was taken aback. He had not expected this exchange. Satoru paused, then folded his hands and shrugged. "I don't know your name, so I'll call you The Rock." His words were casual, but they struck the light-haired ninja like thunder. How did he know? His pupils constricted as panic began to creep in. Could it be that my identity has been exposed? A trace of panic flickered in the light-haired ninja's heart, though his expression remained unchanged. They were, indeed, members of the Boulder clan, operating undercover for their next mission. But to be recognized was something they could not afford. He couldn't let this secrecy be compromised. Satoru's gaze remained calm, but there was a hint of mockery in his voice as he taunted the ninja. "You're lying," Satoru said, his voice tinged with a smile. Satoru gestured toward the ninja, fighting next to him. "Look at him," he said slowly, pointing. Although his skin is pale and his hair is gray, his physique is unusually strong and burly. But members of the Ghost Lantern clan have thinner, more delicate builds due to their special secret techniques. He turned his gaze back toward the ninja engaged with Naoya Kichiji and continued. "This one's even more obvious. He prefers hand-to-hand combat, with smooth, fluid movements. There's no natural tendency to use ninjutsu in combat, and sometimes he can take non-lethal hits without flinching." Satoru's voice carried a cold finality as he added. "The Ghost Lantern clan isn't known for that. They're better suited for hydration techniques." The light-haired ninja's face darkened as Satoru spoke, his grip tightening. How did this kid know so much? What the hell was his origin? Their mission had been to disguise themselves as members of the Ghost Lantern clan to provoke Konoha. If their identities were exposed, the mission would be a failure. Satoru had disrupted their carefully laid plans.
Damn it.
The wind blew Satoru's white hair, and his expression remained impassive. He gave the impression of someone who had just casually shared gossip about the weather, not a ninja revealing critical information about their enemy. The light-haired ninja's thoughts raced. Do we continue the plan? Meanwhile, Satoru's calm demeanor masked the turmoil within. His thoughts were as elusive as the smile on his lips. He glanced at the light-haired ninja with a mystifying gaze, as if the truth were hidden beneath the surface. Asterisk 3-color dango, I'll avenge you. It's not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Asterisk. Up to chapter 90 available.